1, 2, Norman's coming for you. 3, 4, you better lock your door. 5, 6, get your crucifix.
Norman does not have friends. Norman does not like people. But there are people that Norman tolerates. I escaped a life of deals. But escaping Norman, that is literally impossible. We will all see him when we die.
No, I don't sleep. I just choose whether or not to be around at this hour. I exist where life does. Sort of comes with the occupation. But do you really know who I was, Edgar?
A lawyer.
For a brief time, yes. That was mostly to keep my own skin safe from the law, at least for a while. I was a man like you are. I, in life, was deranged, albeit. I thought my purpose was death, to make people fear what it felt like to be that close to it. And I did. There was 54 victims, 5 or 6 or so deaths I'm starting to forget. They eventually caught me, put me up to trial, and it was death by firing squad. They threw me off right with that, right here at this pier. Just right off that cement block.
Who threw you off?
It was death by firing squad. Things were much more barbaric then. It was the government. They killed me and threw my body off right here.
Why did you kill those people? What drove you to do it? Because
After I had my father and Isaac killed our mother, it felt like I had purpose. So I continued. I got curious as a teenager. Eventually got a job as a young adult at a morgue as an assistant, prepping dead bodies. After fiddling with a man's skin one day, his face, that is, my boss at the time had walked in. He was an older gentleman. He had a large gut. He didn't make it to the door before I got him. I cut him with a scalpel, hip to hip, and he spilled out onto the floor. And again, it felt like I was doing what I was supposed to. That old man had a family and people he cared about, so I moved here. And I kept going. I was, looking back, delusional as a man. I just happened to luck out. I thought I was death then. I was wrong. I'll say this. You don't get to choose. I am indiscriminate. You know, there was once a family that lived up at the house just above us here. They thought the same thing. They were tired of me and tried to be rid of me. They thought it wise to buy a big gun, bless a bullet, and strap explosives to the lighthouse. They sat right up there on that rock where your colleagues are and shot me and then set off the explosives, dropped the lighthouse. As you can see, it didn't do them much good. What hope do you have, Edgar? I am no man. I am death. One thing that I am not too keen on, however, is threats. That was a warning. Threaten me again, and you will not see your friends again. Do you understand me?
I understand.
I'll give you this warning, and you're free to give it to Edgar. If he mentions Isaac in any way, my agreement with him is out the window, and I will make him suffer terribly. Next time, if at all, you come here, the scars will be a reminder that you will not ask about Isaac again. Know how everybody calls me what I am. Death.
Yeah.
Isaac was puppeted by that sickness for years. Though we worked together, it was difficult to see him in that state. It eventually rotted him from the inside out. It festered inside him. Isaac had died, and whatever was left inhabited him for some time.
What happens to the bad people? Where did it go?
It depends. It's personal for everyone. Some have the unfortunate situation where they just wander. But those who have done wrong in life typically feel that they are in the right. But there are those who know that they are terrible, evil people. Sometimes they create their own suffering. They manifest what they feel they deserve after. If you feel that is what awaits you,
To the hell with you.
you have to.
What is wrong?
Have you ever made a deal with anyone where they came out on top?
Look around you. Does it look like it? Do you see what lies before you on the ground? You see what lines the walls? What do you think love got them? What friendship or hope brought them? Ruin. You made a deal. And by my law, you stick to it, or you die.
feather of the raven.
It's did you put that there?
No.
Oh, it's the black feather.
What do you mean did I put that there?
It's the black feather.
There's a suspicious looking car driving around, just heading towards Brandon's house. It's white. It's like a Cadillac. Just let you know.
It's him. He's dead on
Just saw it drive past.
It's dead on his pale horse. It's Norman.
You're theorizing your reasons for me showing up.
Fuck.
Do you think that you killing people summoned me?
See, I do. In truth, I do.
People die every day, thousands murdered. Do you think I show up at everybody's doorstep? You're not special, Edgar. I just happen to be stopping by after you.
Look,
Why don't we just talk outside?
I mean, we could talk outside if you want, Norman, but I mean, is it like a vampire thing? Like I had to invite you in before you could walk in?
If I wanted inside your house, I'd be there. I'm doing the polite thing.
The deals that you have to make, is that because you want to do that, or is that because it's a thing that you were required to do?
It is for entertainment. Something that I want to do, not a requirement.
I've known Norman since he was alive, but not close. Someone warned me that Norman was terrorizing people. People were making deals. People were dying. That Norman was approaching groups and wanted to pretty much destroy them, and loves chaos and entertainment in all of the deaths that he's asking of people and all of the ways that he forces people into deals. Because when Norman says, I will kill this person if you don't kill someone else, people take that deal every single time. I got wind that he was doing this, so myself and my former leader and friend made a plan. And that plan was to offer something to Norman before he could shove me into a deal I didn't want, in order to protect our entire group. And we had something that made those deaths more entertaining for Norman. I supplied Norman poison in exchange for the protection of my group. It got complicated. There was something else after me. Norman didn't like that thing either. He agreed to our deal changed probably 5-6 times over the course of everything, but ultimately a day came along where he wasn't able to uphold his end. It's so fucking for real, Edgar. Okay, when there's a bird like Noxee who can set people on fire at will, yes, I'm gonna be nice to the birds.
If you do ever happen to see a bird here, the bird is meaner than I am, so do be careful.
So you do talk to birds?
Not necessarily. Noxee does not speak. Aside from what would normally be considered a crow's or a raven's call.
Never told me your bird's name.
Nobody really cares to ask, but this is Noxee.
Noxee. A particular reason. Just something you came up with. Mind you, or something from the past?
No. The bird named itself.
It's not a hero, it's just high blue assassins. Is that fire? Did she just spit fire?
What a cute little bird with red eyes.
I wouldn't say that to her.
Sometimes you'll see Noxie, and sometimes you may see a white bird. Okay, I'm not going to go into the white bird. The white bird, good thing. Noxie, depends on your relationship.
I found something of yours. It was a book. A diary.
You can call it that.
Or a journal.
Sure.
Unsatisfied, even now, I toy with the idea of just doing it, making the final call on all of life in existence, tolling the bell, as it were, even after I've gained everything I ever wanted. I'm the purpose I wanted for so long. Why, after all of this, do I still have a pit inside me, unfulfilled? The hunger for more everlasting. The question remains, however, if I remove everything in existence except me and life itself, so that I would still be able to live, would that be enough? Would I finally be able to rest? Would this soul twisted soul finally be able to call it quits? Huh? I mean, if he's asking for death, he's wondering if death is what makes me satisfied. If I got all deaths in the world, would I still be satisfied? If the question is no, then what am I doing with myself? I cannot confidently answer that. I would have done what I wanted all along, and yet it does not seem like it would fill that need. Not only that, but even death understands that there is a balance. Of course, there'll come a time when we all return to the dust in a deep black void along with death. But until then, it knows that if one scale tips too far, it could cause a wave that would not stop. So again, I'm reminded to not pull the trigger. At every turn, I'm denied what I understand to be right. At every urge to end something or someone on a whim, I am pulled back. I understand why. I understand how. I understand the reasons not to, and still, I feel the need to do it anyway. I've considered all my options at this point. I have sat alone with my own thoughts for what feels like eons. Everything I've considered has pointed in one direction. There is only one that aligns with what should be, what needs to be. And it is disappointing. It's not what I thought it would be, but it is needed. It's a conclusion I have arrived at. Yet I'm unwilling to even write it, let alone continue to think it, though it must be done. I will leave that until I'm done with these notes. However, there are still things to be discussed. On the subject of deals made, the next section would be of interest to many involved in my recent visit 5 years or so ago. I made several deals with living people in order to harm or kill the people around them. Some targeted people that they cared for. Most made deals so that they don't have to do that. Instead, targeting and sacrificing people they don't know in the name of that deal. There were even times when people offered either themselves or had something of value before I even reached out to them. Word had gotten well around at this point. Some view that as foolish. Most of the time, they're just trying to be careful. In doing so, they unfortunately bring themselves into the fold. Truly, the best way to avoid me, is that stay away. By keeping your distance, you ensure your loved ones a much better chance at not succumbing to an early grave. A lot of people caught on to that. Some even moved away. Though that isn't exactly a solution, moving away that is. I exist in all places, not just a lighthouse. You'd be naive to think otherwise. Should you come into contact with this journal? I have written one before this. I have given it to Shang. For this next section, I think I'm going to answer several questions. However, it should cover the biggest one thus far. How does one kill that which cannot be killed? So many have tried thus far. Not a single one understood the final step. Bundy and his family gave it everything in their arsenal to kill me. The Bondi boys spent months trying to do their best to figure out a way around it. I've been shot, stabbed, set ablaze. They even dropped a building on me, and not a single soul had what it took. It's so obvious. The answer has been in front of everyone all along. I have told my story over and over and over again to countless people who've asked. Either they did not understand or were unwilling to follow through with what needed to be done. Death, of course, goes nowhere. It will remain until the end of time. As stated before, death does not die. Norman still can, in a way. The more I spend in this place, the more I exist in this role, the less of me there is. I have been dead for years now, but for all this time, I retain the mind of who I was as a man. As more time passes, the more I do as well. I expect sooner rather than later there will be not a Norman left. So the question is, how do we get rid of Norman Bones? Will answer itself, right? How pathetic. Every fiber of my undying being presses against that realization. It gnaws at every thought. It weighs on my every decision. I detest my very existence because of it. Still, the answer remains unwritten. Still, it remains unspoken, at least from my own lips. Even if I'm slowly withdrawing away, I'm still here, still causing torment, still hurting those who would be me affected the most, still unfulfilled. When you die, eventually you gain an understanding of your situation. Some souls take eons to get there as they struggle with what they left behind, at what once was, reliving memories long forgotten. Some souls gain their understanding as soon as it happens. For me, it would seem I got both. I understood where I was, and shortly after I got to step into this role. I then began to relive and claw back onto what once was, vicariously through my recent actions, admittedly. Regardless, I knew when I died, that was it. There was no returning to being a man again. I think that if I had the understanding of how to feel, I would miss little things. How food tasted, how the sun felt on the skin, what it meant to make a friend. When I died, I was ready, both to be there and to take death's place. I knew that even if I wanted to be a human again, I could not return and would eventually fade into oblivion with my brother. If you want the job, you must understand. Not only must you die, it must be your purpose. Not only must you die, you must understand that you can never return. Not only must you die, you must accept that there is no afterlife for you. Not only must you die, you must let go of all the things you hope and hold on to. Not only must you die, you must understand the weight of your death. Only then do you have a chance. Once you've reached the finish line, there is only one thing left to do. Kill me. I will not go as quietly as what may have come before me. I will not just let you take everything I've worked for. You will need the will to do so. You will need the strength to endure. Every fiber of your soul must be focused on the singular goal of stepping into my shoes. Otherwise, I will make sure you fade into the ether. Lost to both time and memory, you will cease to exist. But it can be done. I left all of this unsaid for a very long time. Some people guessed it correctly, though none had the gall to actually do it. I kept it unsaid for good reason, though. I wanted to keep what is now mine. I did not want to lose it all. As time has gone on, however, I now realize that I would lose it no matter what. I had mentioned earlier that if no one was to step into the role of death, they would need to let go of all the things and memories they once held as human. They would need to begin the role with the understanding that they could never return. I want you to ask yourself, does that sound like what I have done in the past few years? Have I, Norman Bones, adhered to death's own rule set? Because I have not stayed away from my old life, because I could not stop myself from harming others, because I could not resist the temptation to prey on the weak, because I could not let go of killing, because I could not let go of all of it, because I could not let go of Isaac! I'm being returned to the void. I will become nothing once more. My soul and memories will be lost. There will be no afterlife for me. I will suddenly cease to be, just like my little brother. So why now? Why after all this time do I finally openly say how to get rid of me? The answer is rather clear, isn't it? I'm fading from existence. I do not have all that much time left. Why not go out with a bang? Finally give someone worthy a chance to beat me at my own game. To step into the role at the end of the line. You may think to yourself, well, if we wait long enough, he will just vanish anyway. No need to worry or bother getting involved. Surely it's that simple, right? Surely we just bide our time. Everything will work itself out in the end. I want you to think about all that I did in those years ago. Everything I did, all the families torn apart, all the trust burnt, all of the panic ensued, all of the memories lost, all of the scars gained, all of the souls claimed. That is child's play compared to what I will do now. If you think that I will fade quietly into the night, you're sorely mistaken. So you have your answer. Either one would step up to take on the role, or I will make the worst of what little time I have left. I've already begun doing so, against death's own wishes. I have made more deals, more thoughts run across my mind every waking moment. There is a web of information already in place. The next page is addressed simply to those who think it's wise to view these pages and my words as lies. You should listen to your friends and family about the rumors. They're warning you for good reason, but should you ignore the people who care about your well-being? Go ahead and call my bluff. I would love nothing more. Threads done and over with now. I would like to move on to the subject of the dead and how the living view them. To whoever reads this, if your loved one is dead, they likely do not want you to torment yourself over their loss, no matter the circumstance. Often living people tell tales of what comes after one's death. Wars have been fought over this notion. Societies have been built on the ideas surrounding the topic. Everyone wants to know the truth. Therein lies the problem. Almost all of it can be true. When a soul truly passes behind the veil, whatever happens after is likely molded by their previous beliefs. The soul understands that it's been molded to them, but typically does not push against it, as it is familiar comfort from when they were alive. This is true in most cases, not all though. Some swim their way through an endless fog, lost for eternity, never gaining the rest they seek, by their own design sometimes. Some do not go, some don't get an afterlife at all. They are removed, for lack of a better word. Me and my little brother Isaac are the last case. Isaac has already gone. That being said, they can see you, hear you. They know when you share a fond memory of them. They know when you cry as you think of them. They're there with you when you miss them the most. I understand this is rather somber tone compared to the rest of these notes. It's true, however, most of the dead wish the living could understand that they are at peace. Take solace in that notion. I've tried to keep a baseline respect for the living who respect the dead and the weight of the dead. For a long time I held the dead over the living for leverage, bringing back souls when they should not have been, to use them for deals only to watch more die, including them. That has changed now. It was cruel. Admittedly, knowingly cruel, disrespecting the sanctity of death. It went against what I should have stood for then. I had gone against death's own wishes. It is part of the reason I am being removed, understandably. Those who maintain this idea will always garner a ground level of respect and understanding from me now. Understanding the weight and value of one's life is, after all, the whole point to my work in the first place. After realizing my purpose for so long, it gave way to thinking about why it seemed to mean so much more after so long. My parents had done horrible things to Isaac and I and as children, and they never once thought anything bad was going to happen to them for it. Not only did they give no thought to their children's life, but they didn't value their own. A disregard for the consequences. My entire adult life, I watched people disregard the life they had been given, throw away the lives around them. They had lost sight of the extreme weight of a death. They had forgotten to give their life meaning. I especially, the people of San Andreas, pathetic. You toil away your sad existence every day in pursuit of meaningless material objects, tearing down the people around you. You hoard the things you acquire, step on anyone who may be in your way. And what has that gotten you? A false sense of security? A faint fog of what happiness is meant to be? You are clowns with sad faces painted in tears and blood. You perform every day to keep yourself entertained. You press on, wasting away, hoping that eventually the fresh tears, the frown and driving blood will mean something. That your act will convince not only the people around you, but yourself that you are the one doing it right. It will not change that way. That's not true for all you, however. There are some who understand, some who put on an act but understand and realize their position in it all. Some who try hard to make it worth something, but become lost. Some who actually manage to spend their time living wisely. The number is increasingly lowered constantly. I've questioned myself if I too have lived a life that was purposeful, or that it had meaning to it. Parts of that question are difficult to answer for me. The lack of emotion blurs what would normally be clear for most humans, I think. Though I do not think that how I lived, the things that I did, had meaning. Not only for myself, but the ripples that send out everyone involved, everyone affected. Even now as I write this, as people talk and go about their days just with the knowledge that I exist looming over their shoulder, it gave my existence meaning. It gives their existence meaning in a way. It forces these people to face what they would normally avoid in any way possible. It makes them think of their loved ones. Consider who's the most important. It makes the evil more wicked, the good into proverbial heroes. Above all else, it forces people to answer the question, what would I do when faced with death? The answer to the question is always entertaining. Sometimes it's poorly answered. Some meet it with laughter, some with sadness. Some meet it with kindness. Some, a lot, meet it with anger. Though on occasion that is my fault. Regardless, the answer to the question is not just entertainment. I feel as if at this point I have talked myself in circles and have repeated the same points over and over. I want to pivot topics. I wish to write about Isaac one last time. He told me many stories after we had managed to reconnect here in San Andreas. Even if we had a rather unsavory childhood, he managed to live a mostly decent life, at least by typical standards. After we went our separate ways, he eventually managed to go to school and to get a doctorate. Isaac was always smarter, more careful out of us two. Not only that, but his interest in how the human body reacts to different ailments plagued his mind. During his time at school and shortly thereafter, he met a woman he would later marry. They had both stable jobs and a stable place to live for years. She was kind to Isaac. She showed him what it meant to be valued, loved, and cared for. That is what he told me, at least. The woman, who will remain unnamed for the sake of her family, eventually fell sick. No doctor nor Isaac could figure out what exactly was causing her to wither away. He spent months trying to figure out a way to help her. I know now that the thing was caused of her suffering. When she passed, it was not too long after Isaac moved to San Andreas. He began his doctor work here, but this time thirst inside him grew. It all took a toll on his memory. It made him forget the things about his late wife. Even with his new ailments, Isaac tried to connect with people around him. He grew close with a lot of medical staff that worked at Pillbox Medical, the hospital he worked at during his time. Not only that, but most of the city saw him as a staple in the medical community, unknowing of the sickness he would cause. It was during this time that he met a woman named Olivia Copper. They would spend countless hours together. They both cared for one another deeply but never settled down on anything. Isaac knew at this point something was wrong with him, that if he grew too close to Olivia, she would meet the same fate as his late wife. So instead, he turned to me and we began our work. The memory of what happens after that is tainted by a grotesque creature that puppeted Isaac's decaying body. I will not recount it here. Even after being tormented most of his life, he still tried to be kind. He deserved better than what he got in the end. I blame myself somewhat. He never got to have his last chat with Olivia. His soul vanished into the fog. Though he did get to live a stable life for a while, I'm glad of that. There will be no afterlife for him, not for souls that end up twisted creatures like us. There will be no afterlife for me. I remember watching him go. Being death, it was my burden to see him off. I have no memory of crying when I was living. I did then, even if it was just one tear. I'm on my way, Isaac. I'm sorry for everything that happened to you, and I'm glad you don't have to feel it anymore.